Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another Q&A on day 4 of the virtual San Diego Latino Film Festival. So used to saying, say just going full for it. Well, at this point at the festival, I usually ask people how many movies they've watched already. Some people it's like their first movie, but some people at this point have watched like 2 or 3. Others already are like 15. It really varies person to person. So if you guys are watching this on a live stream or online social media, and you've been watching films, you're more than welcome to comment and let us know how many of you watched so far. We'd love to know. Also, share with us your pictures of you experiencing the festival from home. When we're all together, we have a chance to talk and we as even if we're like going crazy running around, we see you guys having a good time. But now we can't see it because we're all separated from each other. But share with us your pictures, your videos. I don't know if you made a super awesome meal before you started watching the film. So you made some nice cocktails. Since it's here in San Diego, it's really warm. Maybe having a nice beer. We wanna know. Well, thank you so much for joining. We have an awesome collection of filmmakers that are joining us now. One by one, here you go. Awesome, thank you so much. Well, here we have all the filmmakers. We have Tiago Sanato from La Flaca, Vicky Sampson from Reflections, Sal Lopez from Acuitzeramo, Miguel Ángel Caballero from Acuitzeramo, Shelly Rowe from White Ink, Edwin Gomez from La Sad Boy, Loli Meneses from Selma After the Rain, and Juan Carlos after La Soledad de Artemio Volumen 1. Thank you. I like how you guys put all your film name. That was very helpful for me and the viewer. Even though I watch the films, I'm like, wait, that person. I have to do the connect in my mind. Sometimes I'm a little slower.
I didn't put.
It's okay.
So thank you so much for having us. Why don't you guys tell us all where you're calling us from? What part of the country or the world are you in right now? We'll start with you, Tiago.
Hi, I'm in Los Angeles, California right now. I'm in Los Angeles, California right now too.
Los Angeles.
I'm from a little suburb called Shadow Hills, which is near Burbank. So,
Okay.
I'm from Brazil, South Brazil, Florianópolis.
Yeah.
And I'm from Mexico City.
Mexico City.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I'm in beautiful Silver Lake in Los Angeles.
A lot of Angelinos. Well, it's a bummer because most of you probably would have been able to make it to the festival.
I had hotel reservations already, but yeah.
I think with the last amount of film, the last Q&A, we were just talking of some filmmakers that I don't think I had in my time working with the festival, I had as many filmmakers saying they were gonna come as they were this year. So I was excited. I was like, oh, we're gonna have tons of Q&As, lots of filmmakers. You guys' program is actually on a weekend. Our first weekend, we always host Sabor Latino, which is the food and wine and beer festival within our film festival. So I was like, oh, everybody like goes watch a movie, goes to eat, drink, then they come back and watch some more movies or keep partying, either one. We didn't get to do any of that this year, but luckily we're still able to play the films in a virtual setting and have these conversations with you guys. Well, to start off, I want to ask, why don't you guys? I'm always interested in how films come together from like their genesis. So why don't you guys tell us a little bit about what inspired you to make this film? Was it like an idea? Was it you saw a random guy walking down the street and with a bag, and all of a sudden a story spiraled out of there? So we'll start with you, Vicky. Just let us know what was your inspiration or the genesis of your story.
Did you say me? Because you dropped out a second.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, ours was very interesting. My co-producer and writer, Wendy Fishman, and I found this little contest where you had to use like so many lines without changing them and create a story. And we did that, and then we went, wait, we could do this much better. And so we wanted to do, I mean, what's, two older white women making a movie about a young Hispanic transgender person, right? And but it just shows that creativity can come from anywhere, and we're all human, and there's human stories. And I don't believe that you have to be a certain thing to do a certain thing. I mean, I'm lesbian, Wendy is not, and we've done 2 films together so far, very different genres. So that just came out of like, what would it be like for this young woman from this very Catholic family I'm assuming you all saw it, because if I start talking about it and you haven't seen it, it's going to spoil it for you, but so be it. You had to do your homework ahead of time. So, we wanted to know how this would impact her, having this mysterious man's voice in her room. Who is that? And, to keep the mystery going through the whole film, that's called Reflections. We don't see her reflection till the very, very end, where we find out that she's like a man inside, and she's about to get married to a man. I don't know whose that is. Not me. Anyway, so that's where it came from. It came from like a little contest, and then it kind of blossomed from there and became what it was. And
Very nice.
Yeah, interesting thing about it though was that we originally wanted to use her voice as the male voice because it's really her. And so I thought, since I'm a sound editor, I thought I would pitch it down to be like a deeper male voice. But we realized that men and women have different voice patterns. And it's not just pitching, it's not about pitch, it's about a whole, set of social conforms and norms and all that. And so we cast for a male voice, although we did use Jenny's real voice, pitched it down. So when we shot, we had somebody in the corner by the mirror just hitting play so that she would actually be responding to her other self, the other half of herself, which I think was a really great psychological phenomenon for her to experience that. And yeah, and then we cast for a voice and didn't like that first voice. And then it turns out her boyfriend was an actor, and so he did the voice. So he really did put like love into his dialogue, and that's whose voice is in there. So it's kind of a cool, you know, roundabout story there.
Awesome, thank you. How about you, Thiago?
Did you say my name?
Yeah.
Just confirming. Okay. Sorry, cut off for a second. Well, for me, it was part of a research I was doing with Adriana, which is not here, that co-directed the film with me, about religion that started in Mexico. And I personally saw an image of the Santa Muerte in a market in Mexico, and I was really impressed by it because I remember seeing it in some TV series and like Breaking Bad, for example. And to me, it was like a narco thing, and it had that connotation from the beginning. But then I did some research when I went back to New York, and it was a lot more complex than that. So to me, it kind of embodies all these issues with religion and representation. And to my surprise, there was, you know, a shrine of the Santa Muerte in Queens, New York, which shouldn't be that big of a surprise considering how big the community is in Queens. But that's how I met Areli, the main character in our film. So I reached out to her and I talked to her. And over the course of several months, I got to know her and hung out at her house and got to know the community. And it just became a really important matter that I felt like I had to talk about and make a film about. So it wasn't like, you know, it wasn't planned like I'm going to make a film about Santa Muerte or anything like that, but I think it was through the character and through the community that we met that kind of we felt the urge to tell these stories about immigrants and the immigrant narrative in a different way, because she's also a transgender woman. She's an immigrant. She's the leader of a Santa Muerte cult. So she's a lot of things at the same time. And to sum it up, I think she deserved a film. That's why. You know, that's it.
Thank you. We'll go with Miguel Angel, and then Sal, maybe you can talk to us a little bit about how you became involved in the film.
Okay. Yeah, so the story of Acuitzeramo it comes from me. I actually grew up in that town. So I grew up in Acuitzeramo, and I remember at an early age, I would, you know, think to myself and see a lot of elders that were just single in the town. And the story was that, you know, they never really found anybody. And, you know, as I, you know, became an adult and I started reflecting and accepting myself as a queer man, I started thinking, you know, is it really because they didn't find anybody, or they just couldn't love openly in this town because it's not a subject that you talk about in small towns, you know, in rural Mexico. So the idea came from there, and, you know, I started writing a character and exploring what dynamics I needed, and it ended up with Acuitzeramo, which is the story about a man whose partner passes away. He calls his partner's son, who he's never met and never knew that his father was gay, and tells him, and they meet for the first time during the funeral. So that's where the story came about, and I'll let Sal talk about how he got on board and his own experience.
I've known Miguel for a long time, and I knew he had done a previous short, and so he showed me that, and then he pitched me the idea of this short, and I thought it was just, I was really compelled by the story. I thought there's a whole segment of that community that I've never heard, or never seen, or we've never been exposed to that sort of situation. And I thought it would be fascinating to tell that story. And although he was looking for an older gentleman, he thought that maybe, you know, he would gamble with me and have me move a little slower. And so, and the fact that we were going to shoot in Acuitzeramo made it so much more intriguing. And I knew that would bring in an element of authenticity that you just can't get, you know, unless you're in location. and that brought so much to the production value and the authenticity of the subject matter and the setting. And it was so I'm just thrilled and proud that it's getting all this recognition.
Thank you. Thank you. How about you, Shelley?
Yes. Well, for White Ink, it started as a writing exercise first, not necessarily just thinking about a film on itself. And when I started writing, all these things came up. Aside from this idea of love and how we tend to bend it based on any social construct of gender or sexuality or sexual orientation, and this. What happened with the story was that the more that we kept looking at it, I say we with my co-producer Noel Urbano, it didn't matter if we cast, like, who we cast in those lead roles. The story would work either or, because it doesn't matter what your sexual orientation is or what your sex is or your gender. Like, it does not matter, because at the end of the day, it's just that moment in your life where you stand in front of someone and tell them that you're in love with them, and how scary or how high the stakes are. It just depends on where you are in that moment in the world. And so we felt that it was a very universal story. So it was more about exploring kind of love and the interchanging of our ideas of sexuality and gender and within the story. And then the rest is history. Here we are.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Edwin?
I'm really happy to be here. It's so great to hear everybody talk about their process. So thank you for what you've shared. Thank you, Juan, for hosting. Thank you for doing this virtually still. La Sad Boy started, I believe, as an idea and a conversation with my protagonist, Georgie Goico, who plays Sebastian. And it just became a conglomeration of our misadventures in dating and also all the microaggressions that we have experienced as folks who are actually a different ethnicity than Mexican or Mexican American. And so much love for, I mean, my partner's Mexican. I live in Baldwin Park, which is primarily Mexican. So for us, it was this idea of how do you hold on to who you are and your identity and still, make sure to honor, Mexican culture too. So it's kind of something that I haven't really seen dealt with, and something that Georgie Goico and myself felt very strongly about. And it just made sense to make it a day in the life and to just talk about his journey with all these roles of being a gang member, a drug dealer, and just basically, in a really meta way, Sebastian is on this journey and he wants a role like what Georgie's playing. So in many ways, there's this interesting interplay between the real world and who Georgie is as an actor, who I am as a Nicaraguan American writer-director, and how this plays out in the narrative. So we're making the film that Sebastian wishes he could be in. So that was kind of our focus and why we kind of break the fourth wall in the way we do, because it was kind of also talking about Latinx folks who are still writing narratives that only focus on, gang members, drug dealers, because I have to call that out too, because that's kind of the main message that gets put out. And we have a lot of queer people who play gang members. Like, a lot of my friends who are actors always have had some very bad scripts written, and they get sent out to take on these roles. So that was basically the genesis of why. And we did it with $800, and we didn't wait. We just wanted to get it out there. It was our way for dealing with the election. It was our way for pouring in a lot of the frustration and anxiety that we were feeling. And we wanted to be able to share that with all of the other people who basically are going through that now and back then.
Thank you. Are you, Loli?
Well, my film is Selma After the Rain. It's a story about a trans woman that arrives back to her hometown after 30 years to meet her mother that has Alzheimer's. So the script is not mine. so the script writer is an old partner, and he brought me the story, and I was very thrilled when I read. It was very strong for me, and so he invited me to produce and to direct, and we were together. Selma, he wrote the story to Selma, because they were working on theater. They were thinking about writing a theater piece, and it became a script. And so he was is inspired about these stories. It's not biographic, but he was inspired in these stories that she used to tell him. And so the film is about the relation between a mother and a daughter, and it has two themes, because we are talking about transgender, and we are also talking about old age. So these two women, they have to accept each other. They have to meet and to accept the new reality that they are living. And I decided to, sorry, I'm losing, my connection is not so good today, but I decided to make black and white. And I had this music, is a Brazilian singer, Vanusa, and we already had the music in the script, because the story, there's no much dialogues. So for me, the music was very important, because the lyrics tells us a little bit of the story. And I decided to, there is one Brazilian movie that I was very inspired in the rain, the moment of the rain, because in one time she goes out to the rain. It's like her redemption, her reborn. And for me, this Brazilian movie it calls A Falecida. Is like the woman that passed away. I don't know the translation, but is the name of the movie. And this movie was black and white. And for me, this scene that Fernanda Montenegro is in the rain, it was a big inspiration. So I couldn't imagine the film in color. All the time when I read the script, I thought about in black and white. Then I talked to the photographer, and she told me, okay, let's do it. If you think in black and white, let's do it in black and white. And Selma was very important, because as Vicky was saying, I'm not a trans woman. I'm not even a gay woman. So I was I had empathy, but it's not my universe. So Selma was very important, because she was with us working on the script and working together. And it was really, really important for me to go to her universe and understand the difference. And it was really nice, a really beautiful process.
Thank you. How about you, Juan Carlos?
Hi. Our short film, Artemio's Loneliness, is inspired in an anecdote my ex-boyfriend told me. In Mexico City, there's a place we call Zona Rosa, which it's like a very, very old gay spot for bars and all kind of stuff. It has become a bit decadent now, and it's very interesting because it has a lot of bars, but also an underground spots for sex cabins and pornography and stuff like that. So my boyfriend told me that he was a bit like disgusted by a mature man that approached to him and asked, where is the sex stuff and all that, no? And it really shook me that he felt like a bit repulsed about being an old, in his words, old gay man. So that idea really hit me in my mind. And I thought about these old generations of men that probably didn't have this way of finding out their identity, or find like a more normal way of focus their sexuality. Maybe they don't have the support of their parents. I don't know. And I became very interested in going to these places and watch these men, because there's a lot of old men in these places that they only watch, and that was very, very interesting for me. As filmmakers, I think we all are a bit like voyeuristic, so I identify with all of them also. But I also love the Mexico City vibe and all the underground stuff, and I wanted to mix that with the gay techno parties that we used to make like 2-3 years ago. There was a big boom of gay techno parties, and with stuff like a porn theater in the center of Mexico City, that it has a traditional 50s architecture, and they still project gay pornographic movies. That's very, very interesting, because I think we are one of the few old theaters in the world that still do that very Taxi Driver porno and midnight sessions. I don't know. It's very, very interesting. So we got the chance to shoot in the theater, and we get inspired by the city mainly. We took our camera with very low budget, with no producer, and the photographer, the main actor, and I went to all of these spots without permission, or just like, let's do it. That's like about like to sum up.
Awesome, thank you so much. Well, I just want to remind the audience, at any point, if you're watching it on Facebook or on YouTube, you can ask any questions and they'll come up for us down here in the bottom. Like, for example, Miriam Seligman says, congratulations, Loli Meneses.
My aunt.
And Ethan Vantillo, our executive director, says, thank you for your support of San Diego Latino Film Festival. Thank you, Ethan. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I think you're muted, Vicky.
Oh, I have a question for Miguel. I was curious why you didn't have the son reveal his identity.
For several reasons, because I felt that if he would have to come out to his father's partner, it would become a coming out story, and I didn't want it to be that. I wanted this to be a story of forgiveness and love between two strangers that shared a person that they both loved. So I toyed with it in earlier drafts, Vicky, I did, but then I just realized that it was going to become something else, and I really wanted it to hit at the very end, that he didn't come out to his father because he was afraid his father would never accept him. And his father didn't come out to him, and he actually ran away because he was afraid his son wasn't going to accept him. And at the very end of the film, you realize that you've lost an entire life between these two men because of this social stigma, this fear that they had to live through, thinking that the other was going to not accept them. And I felt like that was stronger than him even bringing up the fact that he was gay with the character of Salvador.
Thank
you. I mean, it was, I was really impressed with the photography, and it was so beautiful, and you must have had drones or something, but it was so colorful and beautiful, the way you shot it and where you shot it. I mean, it's so great to see a different part of the world that, you know, like I'll never get to see in person, really.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, we did.
So
we did have some drones. That's what we could afford. They were tiny drones, but they ended up working out. And it was also really, really great to have, you know, Sal and the rest of the team there, because they had never been to this small town in the middle of nowhere in Michoacan. And Sal could chime in if he has something about his experience.
Just that, you know, every morning at 5 o'clock, I would be woken up by the roosters right by my door.
So the dancing people.
We have Patrick.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just wondering about like the dancing people with the masks.
So that's a very typical dance that's performed there in the state of Michoacan, which is an indigenous state, the Purépechas.
That's where
So
my
what that
actress
dance?
is from, actually.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So they actually used to, the only people that used to be able to do that dance was elders, and it was very spiritual. And the purpose of the dance was to take the soul from the physical earth and onto the spiritual, as they would help it guide it. And
Like
that's why I brought them in, yes, to be able to guide Roberto, which is the father and the person that passed away, to be able to guide him into the spirit world. But he doesn't leave until he makes sure that Salvador and Anthony are okay, and they're going to be okay.
Yeah, that came across. And Tiago, is that how you say your name? Did I say that right? Tiago?
Yes, that's right.
It was interesting for that, because it was like part documentary and part narrative. It felt like to me. A very powerful film. Like I had never know. I don't know about the Saint Death. It's very, very, you know, intriguing cult. Well, as you call it, a cult. Yeah. But I thought that was great production value there.
Nice. Yeah, it was really a skeleton
crew. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, just me, the photographer, and the sound person, and Adriana, pretty much. But I think a lot of the production value kind of comes through as the set design, which is basically the party that she throws every year. So everything you see, it's her house. When I say her, it's Adelise, our main character. It's her house. It's the party that she plans everything. So she does all the decoration, which is really intense. She spends a lot of money doing that. So I think that's why you have the feeling that you know there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All of your films have very strong styles and overall, but like very strong voices that you can see through, that come through the viewer. And I was wondering, while you guys were either writing this or shooting this, editing, was there any films or any projects that you had that you were watching constantly for inspiration? Before we do that, before you get to answer that, we have another comment. Patrick Stillman says, "Thank you for bringing our stories to cinematic light."
Nice beard, Patrick. Well,
we'll start with you, Vicky.
I wanted to bring up from Wendy's, the writer and my co-producer. She also came up with the idea of like how we talk to ourselves in the mirror. Like we have a conversation with ourselves, and what would that be like if your self talked back to you with your true identity, which I think a lot of people struggle with, gay, straight, whatever. We all struggle with identity and how we're seen in the world and how the world sees us, and how can we make those, cohesive and integrated. So one of the questions I ask people at the end of the screening when we get to be in person is like, so what happens when she goes out of the room? What happens? Does she tell them? Does she not tell them?
Thank you. What do you do? Look, freeze. Oh.
What happened? Are we freezing?
Yeah.
If anybody wants to go next, you can go ahead.
I'll jump in. I think for us, for White Ink, more than watching and rewatching other films that had to do with the theme, I think one of the main things for us were locations. And we shot the film down in Tijuana in Mexico. And you know, in the outsides of the city. And it was very, we wanted to look for spaces that felt very non-specific. So like with Miguel's film, just the blues and the whites and the town itself is a whole character within the film. We wanted to make sure that with White Ink, it was this idea of it can be anyone, anywhere in the world, hiking next to a person they love. And so that was important for us. So it was a lot of, we were looking at a lot of different movies that had this hiking element within them, and the kind of not necessarily the shots, but yes, the environment and how much they were portraying the environment, how could we make it so it felt like wherever you go hiking, you could also be going through the same thing. And that was important for us to feel like it's anyone. And for me, at least as a producer and a writer, being Latina and being very much what Edwin was saying, which is this idea of like you can play two things and that's all you can play as an actor, or that's the kind of story that I'm going to tell. I think it was important for us to say, you know what, does not matter like your sexual orientation, your gender identity, or your sexuality, or your ethnicity. These are very human, global stories. So we wanted to make sure that the environment also portrayed that in the story.
It was interesting, Shelley, because at first you think, oh, she's just slept with the groom or something. That was like the intention or something like that, right? And so would he have known that she was in love with the bride?
I don't know. You tell me. It's the same thing that you were asking right now for your film. I think when I wrote that first part, it wasn't intentionally so the audience would think that they had something to do with each other. But when we were shooting it and then looking at it in the editing floor, it was very clear that that was something that people would get from watching the film. The same thing at the end. As Miguel was saying, toying with these ideas of moving things around. I think there was also this wanting to stay away from kind of giving it closure and just leaving it. So, I mean, she's walking out, she calls for her, who knows? And the interesting thing is that whenever someone watches the film and they send me a note, every person, depending on where they're from and their age group, have different endings for the film.
Interesting.
Depending on who they are, I will get of course she's with her, and oh, she would never do that. It's because of, you know, what are people going to say? So it's always connected to their age group and where they're from. It's very interesting.
Yeah. Well, they say you don't step in the same river twice. You know, as you go along in your life, it's like you have different experiences, and you know, everybody has a different waterway.
Go next. So it wasn't that we really were watching something, and it wasn't, for me, my first love has always been poetry, and Latin American poets have always really touched my soul. And I think I wanted to, it's like a love letter to the poetry that we all live internally. And so a lot of the film for La Sad Boy is about that internal monologue that a lot of people never hear, right? And so for me, like, showcasing the poetry of Julia de Burgos and like Rubén Darío, and like Rubén Darío was someone I read who's like the father of modernism in Nicaragua, from Nicaragua, but in Spanish language, right? And then you have like Pablo Neruda. And I think it's all these things where we forget that, like, at least in Nicaragua, it's like, it's known as the Tierra de Poetas, right? Like, it's the idea of like, you can recite like you ask anybody and they'll recite a poem to you. And I feel like that is so intrinsically Latin American. And I just really wanted to showcase specifically the poem that we chose of Julia de Burgos. I wanted to make sure it hit that idea of leaving the island, of leaving Puerto Rico behind, of leaving your mom. So for me, it was more like, how can we reflect this poetically, visually? How can this become visual poetry, right? And I think that's always kind of the way that I go in my development process of a film. Like for any of the films that came after La Sad Boy was the third film I ever wrote and the first one I ever like actually pursued to make with no budget. And I think that that's kind of what I love. The color palettes. These films have such a beautiful color palette, and it reminds me of being in Nicaragua. It reminds me of the ways in which we oftentimes just paint with these beautiful colors, and we have such histories that are so painful to revisit, right? Just in general, when you look at the history of a place, and just like Miguel had mentioned, like this relationship that never was between these generations, right? That could have been had. Like I feel like it's about the connection and the disconnection we have when borders and countries just separate us from those that we love. So I think that was kind of what I leaned into, and that was kind of the guiding principle for the choices artistically.
Thank you.
I think for me, the same as Edwin and Shelley. I don't think there was anything specifically that I was watching, but I had the gift of knowing where I was going to shoot. So I already had this idea. And one thing that I was very clear with our DP, Philippe, who did a really amazing job, was that I told him that, you know, we're telling the story of a Mexican man who lives, you know, from someone else's perspective on the verge of poverty. But he's happy. And I didn't want to do the gritty camera or the dark or making it look, you know, gritty. I told him I want to celebrate his life. And I knew as I was writing, because the entire town was in my head, I wanted it to look beautiful and have this colorful thing amidst this, you know, this mourning and this loss. But I was very clear that I wanted to show this man in a very beautiful, elegant way and not, you know, go to the grittier, kind of darker, shaky camera side, because I wanted to show him in you know, in a beautiful way that we could see him, that he's happy. He's just going through a loss, and at the very end, he starts transforming the life of people in the town himself. They start coming around and, you know, supporting him and accepting him for who he is.
Thank you.
Well, can I
go now? Because, yeah, sorry, I had some technical issues.
Oh, you good?
Sorry, Loli. Scupa, Loli.
Yes.
Just a second. So, yeah, for me, there's a film I can attach to La Flaca, and to me it's very similar, which is Abdelatif's Keshish, The Secret of the Grain, which is the guy that made Blue, you know, the Blue is the warmest color. But his previous film is amazing because it's about this immigrant as well, that he's working towards a party. He's trying to build a life he's trying to rebuild his life actually, but there's a party in the end. So to me it's very similar, and I watched this film several times because I really like it. But in the end, I think the main inspiration is the character itself. And just like Miguel said, you know, like sometimes you want to portray the beauty in your characters. That's where the camera work comes from, and how you frame them, you know, make them look like colorful, alive, and vibrant in a setting that, or certain life circumstances that are not so bright, and so that contrast comes across in our film as well, I guess. But I think it's, you know, it's not easy to connect a film to any other film you're making, just one or two, because I think, at least it seems to me here, that all the experiences of everyone are very specific, you know, and very unique in a way.
Thank you. Did you want to go next, Oli?
Well,
you talked about it in the beginning, right?
What? Sorry?
I think you spoke about it in the beginning a little, but did you want to elaborate?
Yes. For me, it was very important the choice of the actress, the mother. because when she came to the project, we already had to almost choose a house, a location to be the house. And when Amelia arrives in the project, the house didn't fit with her. Like, she was very strong for the first house. The first house was very bucolic, was like in a small farm, like, you know, the house of a grandmother, a very sweet grandmother, and didn't fit. When Amelia arrived, I said to the producer, the co-producer, I said, we have to find another location. And she said, oh, no, you are crazy, because this location is all right. We have the money and we have everything. And I said, sorry, but we have to find, this woman could not live in this house. Selma could not have these memories, and I need a dramatic location. I need some place more oppressive, more closed. I need the location to communicate with the two women. So we looked for another house, and then the location that we found, I think it was perfect, because it was dramatic. The light, the natural light was perfect. The light that came through the windows and the doors. And so it was really important, the choice of the actress, because then I looked for the inspirations. Then I looked to Bergman, and there is one scene when the two women are looking to the mirror. I was inspired by Persona, and I wanted, when I was in the editing, the editor told me, oh, there is a problem, because there is a wrong, you know, when you change I don't know the name in English, but they, in one shot, they are looking to the mirror, and the other shot, they are in the opposite. So this is wrong. And I said, no, it's not wrong. I want them to change the position, because I want they mixed. And so it was, for me, as Shelley was saying, the location and the actress was, when we found the two, it was like perfect. They closed the thing.
Awesome, thank you. How about you, Juan Carlos?
What locations
for me,
Sorry?
yeah. For us, for me, as this being my first professional short film, I wanted to go to the old school, to the basics, and being absolutely inspired in Bresson, especially in the fact that I don't want it to be a lot of dialogue, and I want to rely more on sound and image. So it was very interesting, because my actor, Alex de la Rosa, is mainly a soap opera actor. So he is more used to this very, very normal and a lot of dialogue. And if they are sad, they cry. If they are happy, they go nuts. So it was very interesting to deconstruct. It was very interesting to deconstruct all his head. And I said to Alex, you have to say it just with your eyes. Don't do anything. Don't exaggerate. Just do it with your eyes. Do it with your hands, no? Because that's like the main lesson from Bresson, the hands. So I really wanted to him to do a lot of body performance. So part of my inspiration was that, and the other one was Lucio Fulci, an Italian horror cult director, which he was the one that got me this very like crazy idea of take your camera and go to the subway and just shoot and like just do it. So maybe I like combine these two inspirations, no, like a very formal but a very experimental also.
Just before we go on to the next question, I think there's a couple comments here for Loli. Yeah.
My aunts, all of them are online. Oh, my father and my mother.
That's right. There we go. Well, I have a comment. You guys are doing a really important work in the sense that usually when we have, you don't see POC LGBT characters a lot in media, right? I think there's a thing that Sal says that I think you mentioned a little bit earlier, Miguel Angel, that he says, Sal's character says de eso no hablamos, we don't talk about that here, right? Something along, I'm paraphrasing, I think. It's probably not the exact same thing. But I think it's something that's common in the Latino community sometimes. And well, first, I wanted to talk a little bit about that and why you guys' films are so important, not just for film festival, for Latino audiences, but like to audiences in general, that to say that people of color who are LGBTQ exist, you know, and they're multidimensional characters. Is not where there's different aspects to everybody. As you guys as films show, you guys all have very strong characters. In Thiago's case is an actual person who's super interesting and has so much to give. But maybe you can talk to us a little bit about what attracted you to it, Sal. Maybe was it the fact that it was something that we're not your character that we don't see a lot, an older gentleman who's in Mexico, or maybe it's something else. Well, we'll start with you.
Starting with, are we starting with me? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I was very intrigued because just in general, I mean, you know, when you go to these little pueblitos and you see these people, especially like, you know, you see a lot of older gentlemen, they hang out together, you know, they have their gorros, you know, and they are platicando, you know, and you never even think about it. I mean, you just assume that everyone is straight, but what if there was a gay man among them, you know, or how many of them among them are gay and in hiding and obviously cannot come out because of the taboo. So it's just fascinating to be able to present that. I think that, you know, I think Miguel hit a chord when he came up with this movie, because it's so poignant in that way, and so we get to see something that is maybe we've never been exposed to it, you know what I mean? And it's sad too, you know, and I think that now with how the world is changing and how we're changing, it's very hopeful in at least our little movie. And so at the end, I don't know if you noticed that, you know, I'm actually humming humming in the tune. And I think that we chose to end it in that way with a positive, you know, a positive and uplifting sort of a message that things are changing and it's becoming more acceptable, and you know, and apparently, you know, there's been a lot of people who've been reaching out to Miguel, and maybe he can talk about this, who have said, you know, who are grateful that we made this movie and brought an awareness to that community.
Thank you. Yeah. whoever, if anybody wants to add
Can I answer your
anything.
question?
Yeah, yeah. Awesome, thank you.
I'll just quickly comment on what Sal said. That yeah, it's been beautiful. The you know, when as we all know here as filmmakers, everything has to come together to be able to, you know, get it. It has to just kind of mix together. And you know, we're all here, so I think it happened to all of us in our projects. But I was so fortunate to have somebody like Sal and Luis to be able to portray these characters, and you know, the DP and everybody to say this message. And then, you know, I constantly get messages of people that are either saying, you know what, my godfather has never married and we all think he is. Can I please see your film? Because I want to use it as a starting point to open up the conversation and say it's okay, because they're from small pueblos as well. And I've had also somebody that's younger, like in their late 30s, say, I just never knew how my parents were going to see me, because for them gay is like something else, like in the US, and they're from Mexico living in the US. So I want to see the movie to play with them, to tell them, to assure them that, you know, gay comes in very different shapes and forms. So it's been, you know, the amount of messages that we've been getting, it's so beautiful. And again, it's not necessarily because of me. Yes, I directed it, but it's because of Sal, because of Luis, because of our DP, because of the crew, because of everybody that just poured their heart to be able to create this message. And now we're fortunate enough to be able to send it out. And, you know, also you guys, Juan, for giving us a platform to share this with everybody.
Thank you for sharing it with us.
Hey Juan, since you mentioned my character in the beginning, already, to me it was really important to portray a Latin transgender that has a weird, you know, quote unquote religion, because it kind of defies all the preconceived notions of what people have of what a Latin immigrant, documented or undocumented or transgender or not, from another religion that you don't understand is, you know. And she embodied all these things. And to me, it's like almost like a personal quest to like go against what these forms of representation that are so, you know, they're the same. They're just reproducing the same logic over and over of what is good and what is bad. And as an immigrant person in the U.S., I think it's important I want to feel represented, even if it's a bit of a stretch to me to say that I'm being represented by the character in my film, because she's a transgender woman. But at the same time, you know, I'm just sick of seeing the same types of representation over and over. That's why I think any type of representation that goes in the opposite direction is super valid, you know. That's what diversity is about, and that's what I think film should start going to. And when I think about like when we shot the film and now, things changed a little bit, you know, for better, but they also changed for worse. There's like more resistance, you know, on the other end of the spectrum. And you just have to look at the presidential polls, and it's just terrible, you know. Like the immigrants are still seen as a threat, a danger. You know, transgender women are just still being seen as a piece of meat, as just they're prostitutes. And so Santa Muerte is like this, again, the devil, you know, the Catholic or evangelical church is just painting the other cultures as devilish. It's just that hasn't. Sometimes I feel like it's improved, and sometimes I feel like it just got worse. That's why I think it's important to keep making these films, and important to, you know, make festivals like these that just showcase all these different stories, you know, because they're very different. That's it.
Yeah, I think it helps to normalize experiences for other people, especially those who, you know, look at it from the outside as opposed to the inside looking out, sort of preaching to the choir. I mean, when we make these films with gay and lesbian and transgender characters, we are sort of preaching to the choir, but we're also validating those experiences for people. And in the case of Reflections, I think, you know, for young people especially, who are hiding from the light. I mean, the whole opening sequence was all about her hiding from being found out, hiding from the light, literally. So some people think when it starts out, it's a horror film, and then they're either disappointed or, you know, or not. But, you know, we really wanted to focus on, you know, what is she most afraid of? And I think in the case of all our films, I mean, people are afraid. I mean, I was afraid to come out, you know, and it took me many, many years and a marriage and, you know, 2 children and a husband who got cancer and died, unfortunately. But, you know, that's another story for another movie. But, you know, we are sometimes guided by fear. And right now, I mean, we have so much fear in the world. So to me, it's comforting to hear all of these different stories about how we overcome that fear and live our lives authentically. And that's really what I think all of our films are about, is just trying to live an authentic life, being true to yourself, you know, being sometimes having to go away to a small town to get away from people who know you, like in Miguel's film. You know, sometimes it's declaring, I mean, I totally bond with Shelley's character in her film, because, you know, I remember when my best friend got married and I was really upset because I couldn't tell her I loved her. And it's like, why is her husband get to kiss her and I don't, you know, kind of thing. It's like, she loved me better, but she got married anyway, and still married to this day. She's one of my dearest friends. But, you know, it's just like, you have to be yourself. Totally.
Thank you.
I think I appreciate so much being programmed with all of your work. I think what it reminds me to do is that anything that is generated from me as a writer director will always be queer, will always be Nicaraguan and Central American, and will always just showcase that, regardless of who the characters are, because intrinsically that's who I am. And I'm leaning into that instead of trying to follow the tides that the industry is pushing, right? And I think, like, I mean, we have the Emmys happening right now as we're in this Q&A, and nobody Latinx, and it's not, and I don't say this in the sense of like a handout. I just mean there are actually really great shows out currently that deserve to be recognized because of the excellence, the Latin excellence that exists in this world. And I just appreciate so much to be programmed here virtually with all of you, to be able to shine next to you and to continue to push these stories forward. Because that's why I appreciate so much the San Diego Latino Film Festival, the fact that even with this pandemic, you found a way of creating such a wonderful platform for us to come together and really just be here in the celebration of Latin American cinema and of Latinx just voices. So thank you so much for that. And thank you for just creating this, because I think sorry, I think that it's my alarm. What I'm saying is really important. My alarm's ringing. So just know that the Lo Corazon, like, I really appreciate all of these films, and they were so beautiful to watch. And I just think that at the end of the day, it's so beautiful to see all of these different protagonists and characters, because all of them are going through what in essence is not even Latino, it is universal. Like, we have really pushed this idea of what Latinidad is, and it is universal. It is the story of humanity.
For me, was a surprise because Selma, I shoot 2 years ago before this new government, and the actual government in Brazil is really fascist, is really conservative, and I got a public fund to make this film that doesn't exist anymore. And this government is against art, against cinema, against women, against LGBT community, against everything. So for me, it was so important. Maybe if I didn't shoot 2 years ago, I could not shoot anymore, because I would not have possibilities to raise fund. And it's so important. The film had been toured 14 countries and had been shown more out than inside in Brazil. So that's what Edwin was saying. The story is universal. And for me, it was very important to confirm this, that we are talking about transgender, we are talking about old age, we are talking about women, and everybody, all the countries, India, Thailand, Turkey, so many different countries, so many different cultures, LGBT festivals, non-LGBT festivals, and lots of people watched and gave me feedbacks and told me things that, oh, I identify with Selma, I identify with the mother because my mother had Alzheimer. The story, it's my story, and this is really thrill.
Thank you. Yeah.
I right now that Loli mentioned this idea of like the different festivals and the ones that have to do with specifically for LGBTQ plus materials and the ones that don't, I really do want to thank, as Edwin was saying, the San Diego Latino Film Festival, because with our film, aside from the craziness of COVID and like during this festival round, there have been a few Latino festivals that have gotten back to me saying that they don't think my film is Latino enough. Like it's not a Latino topic. And it was directed by a Latina, written by a Latina, stars Latina. Like we filmed in Mexico. And it's yes. So yeah. So I really want to say thank you. One, because you have a whole block called SOMOS LGBTQ plus dedicated under your San Diego Latino Film Festival, dedicated to these kinds of stories, which, as Edwin was saying, is so important for people to see themselves reflected on the screen. The power of that is huge. And I know we use this term a lot and just like they use it everywhere when they talk about diversity, but it is very important for people to see themselves reflected on the screen. And yes, I think all of these stories that that all of us brought to life have to do with being Hispanic and have to do with being human and Latinos, or however you want to call it. But it's not, I'm very grateful that you guys are taking a step into making sure that there's a space for films like these to be screened.
Yeah, and I think it's this started, I think this is our 14th or 15th year with the SOMOS program. It's previously called CINE, but we were trying to make it more exclusive, so we changed the name to everyone. But yeah, I mean, it is important, and there's not to say that the only LGBT films are in this shorts program. Like they're peppered throughout, like through the other shorts program too. It's just, and I think it goes to say like the amount of content that there is, the amount of stories that there is being told, and yeah, it's as long as you guys keep making them, we'll try to fit them into our festival. So I want to have you all back. You guys all had great films, very powerful stuff. But yeah, sorry, Juan Carlos, were you gonna say something? I feel like I was
Yeah, I was on the last note on Shelley. It's very interesting because I thought my short film was going to be completely accepted in all Mexico's festivals, for example, because I thought I was making a Mexican short, a Latino short, and it's going to be accepted in all Mexico and in all the festivals in Mexico. And it was very, very, very interesting that the two of the festivals that got us in very fast in the early stages were in Romania, and actually they in the last month we were in 3 festivals in Romania. So we never thought that I was making a short film that's going to be successful in Bucharest. So that speaks about the universal of the stories. And I never thought Artemio was going to get someone is going to identify with Artemio in Bucharest. It was crazy, and it's also like very beautiful because they really like the short film there.
Yeah, even though they're even though they're like you said, they're Latino films, they're very universal contents, I think, all over the world, very universal themes. Well, I think I've held you guys back for a long time already. So we're already at 1 hour and 10. I think I'm gonna let you guys go so you guys can enjoy the rest of your Sunday. But for our viewers out here, if you guys like these films, if you guys want to see more of this content, the only way that Latino film LGBT content gets produced is if we watch it and we consume it. If you like these films, spread the word about them. Help these filmmakers. Maybe someone, some huge benefactor at some point is gonna find their film and be like, wow, I like this person's voice. Let me give them $1 million. But so right here at the bottom, I'm actually gonna, in our comments, I'm gonna be sharing everyone's social media for their films and themselves. So if you guys want to follow them, if you want to post about the film, you're more than welcome to. We got La Flaca movie here. And sorry, I'm gonna keep doing that. Bear with me just a second while we'll get everybody in here. All right. If you guys have any final thoughts or anything, any final comments, you guys are welcome to mention them as I do this. It's gonna take me a couple minutes.
I just had a question. Have you guys found that there's like an oversaturated market of gay, lesbian, transgender films out there? Because I submitted to quite a few gay and lesbian festivals, and we didn't get into a lot of those. And I'm wondering, is it the content? Are they just oversaturated? Is it the movie? You know, so I wondered what your experience was with it.
The La Sad Boy premiered at Outfest last summer, actually, and what I would say, and I've had to do this in my mind with other films that I've put out right into the festival circuit, is sometimes it really just comes down to programming, and I think Juan could probably attest to that. It really is about how films fit together, and so sometimes it's like that's why a really great film might not make it into a festival. So I just find it funny to think of an oversaturation of trans LGBTQ plus content when I feel like we've all been starved for like centuries of it, like for just the length of film since the Lumiere brothers. So it's one of those things where like, let's keep making amazing films and submitting, because you just don't know. I don't know if you wanted to mention anything about the programming side, Juan.
Yeah, I mean, every year there's tons of films that get left out. I mean, just speaking on our end, we get hundreds of submissions, and this year I think it was, from all of them, I think it was like just a little bit over 100 I got accepted, and it comes down, it gets down to time more than anything. A lot of the time, but yeah, I think it's. I don't think there's a oversaturation of that of these themes. Also, if anything, sometimes I know there's years where we like to have the SOMOS program, and there's not enough films that got submitted. So I'll go around and look at other festivals, what they've been playing. I'll reach out to other to distributors to see what they have going, because yeah, there's still there's still a need, and there's still sometimes some years I think there's more of a certain theme or a certain content than others. It just depends, I think, year by year, and I think with the amount of filmmakers, the accessibility in filmmaking nowadays, it adds to I think more competitive more competitive submissions or submissions being more competitive. Sorry. But it's a good thing. It's a good thing. It means that at least for us, our Latino Film Festival, it means that there's Latino filmmakers out there and there's Latino filmmakers making content. So it's just a matter of getting it to be more mainstream, right?
Yeah, I also like to say that our film La Flaca, for example, it was a screen in Russia, in Tunisia, and in China, where those are countries where LGBTQ content is not allowed in a lot of cities and most parts of the country. In China, they had to screen it in a location that they could not publicly announce. So I think it's really important to send these films around the world. And our experience is that they were really well accepted. You know, our film was really well accepted. We had our premiere in Switzerland, which was unexpected. So I think, you know, the world is open to it, and there's people that want to see this. So I don't think it's saturated at all. If they played queer content for the next 100 years, it would not be enough, you know.
Yes.
And even like featuring POC characters too, and you know, I think everyone had enough of the same types of heroes, so people are actually eager to see these things, and it's easier to like let some people that have not come out yet, they can go and see these films, even if it's under the radar. I think it's amazing that we can send it around the world and get other people to see these films.
Who's got the crow? Who has the crow in the background? That's interesting.
I can hear it too.
Sorry, I'm a sound person. I hear these things.
Yeah, me too. I was listening.
Pretty hard to move. I was like, is it me? Do I have a chime going on here?
Miguel, do you have contact info?
I do. I think Juan is posting it. I'll post it on the private chat for now.
If Aquitsaramo also has an account or for one of your films, you can send it in.
It could be the website aquitsaramofilm.com.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, again, anybody watching, if you want to follow these accounts, share them with your friends. So if you like the movie, post about it, write about it. The more people get eyes on these films, the better it is for communities. Communities.
What's next for everybody? You got something in the pipeline?
Well, I'm finishing a documentary about the founder of Newsweek magazine. This man, Thomas John Cardell Martin, is buried in a quite small city near my town, a 9,000 inhabitants city.
Wow.
And I found out this story. I was very curious about it, and 5 years ago I started to research and to make the project, and then to search for funds, and finally I shoot in 2018, and now I'm in post-production, and I hope next year I can release it. And I'm developing a feature fiction film also. That is other thing, is a kind of exploitation genre. Is a truck driver serial killer that arrives in in a small town and kills all the men because she's building a creature inside of the truck. And this project, I'm searching for funds to shoot. I'm developing about some years, and I'm in the final part of the develop thing, and that's the two next films. I hope so. And you guys?
In pre-production for a horror sci-fi film, which we'll see how VFX goes. In post-production, please send your prayers.
Yes, I need players also.
Me and my writing partner, I'll be quick because I know we've been on here for a bit. We're working on the feature of Aquitsiramo and then also another feature film that we're collaborating on.
Awesome. That sounds like it's gonna be a great feature.
Yeah.
It does.
I definitely want to see more of Sal's character.
Yes, and we're excited, and the hardest thing is done, which is getting the right cast. So it's perfect.
I had a premiere this summer of my next short, Joyride, where two Latina sisters break their grandmother out of her senior living facility for one last joyride. It actually won Most Popular at the PBS Short Film Festival and will be making its rounds via the festival circuit. You can still see it on PBS's short film website, and I'm working on the feature film version of that currently. And I'm working with Georgie Goico again on a digital series called Frenemigas. So that's also coming too.
Cool. Anybody?
My co-producer and writing partner, Wendy, not a partner, but she does all the writing. We're working on a feature film to hopefully be shot in Sedona. We got the inspiration from being at the festival. And it's kind of a time travel murder mystery thriller film and set in the art world in 1948 and 2021. So, because I would like to do a feature before I die. So,
me too.
I think I'll go. So, I'm actually I'm working on a feature documentary that was just selected for the Points North Fellowship, so we're really happy about that. And it takes place in Brazil and Nigeria, so it's about this Nigerian man that immigrated to Brazil in the 80s, and he became an intellectual and a religious leader. So it has something to do with La Flaca as well, because there's religion involved as a form of resistance. But it's really about the conflict, the religious conflict in Brazil right now with the rise of the right-wing government that Loli was talking about, and all the attacks that this religion, the African religions in Brazil, have been suffering lately, which are terrible. And not lately, but since the beginning, of slavery for over 350 years. So that's in development. I mean, it's almost done. We're going to post-production soon, hopefully. And we're also working on a feature version of the La Flaca, which is an extended version of that, expanding on that story.
Sounds really good too. Yeah, there was a lot in there, I think, that you probably left in the cutting room, right?
Yeah, it doesn't fit. No, yeah, we always felt like most of the stuff we wanted to talk about, it's out of the film. We could probably make a medium format film with what we have at this point, because there's a lot there.
Yeah. Well, you, Juan Carlos or Sal, have you had any chance to shoot anything?
We just premiered our second short film this month in the Shorts Mexico. I hope you can watch it in the future and next year. It's about transgender youth in two families that help their kids to grow up in a healthy and supportive environment. So it's called Visible Transgender Youth Stories, and I hope you can watch it somewhere.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How about you, Sa? Are you still, have you had a chance to record anything since quarantine started, or you have anything in the works?
I did actually just get back from Arizona to do some pickup shots for a movie that I did last year. So yeah, I've started. Things are picking up little by little. Yeah.
That's good. Okay, well, I'll let you guys go, but before that, I want to share with you some more comments from audience members. We had Patrick Stillman here says, your films reveal the heart of identity and culture, which expands our thinking about the possibilities of life. Thank you. Beautiful comment. And then we have Patricia Montoya says, thanks for this program. Super important. Yeah. Camila Meneses says, congrats to all of you.
My sister.
And Larissa Vega says, bravo, such a great program. Well, again, thank you all so much for joining us. It sounds like you guys all have awesome projects on the works. Please submit them afterwards. Don't forget about us. We want to have you back, hopefully next time in person, so that we can all see each other, hug each other. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us and hanging out with us for almost an hour and a half. We thank you on behalf of the San Diego Latino Film Festival, and we hope you have a great night. Again, people, follow their accounts, tell people about their film.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Nada.
And thank you to everybody at the festival.
Thanks, San Diego.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you.
Blessings.
Bye. Good night.
Stay safe, everyone.